Okay, so we've come in the morning. We've got our console powered up. We've got our Spotify music going. We've got our vocal channel strips named. We've saved a new file. We're ready to run a sound check. Let's walk us through one channel strip. Okay, we got kind of a lot of information on this one screen here. Let's talk through it and say what each thing is doing. Let's start right at the top with gain. What is gain, Scott?
Gain is, a buddy of mine described it very well to me a couple weeks ago. It's like the hose attached to the side of your house. The knob on your house is how much pressure you're going to get, what's available to you down the pipe. And the fader is how much is going to come out. The fader is like the nozzle at the end of the hose, is how much you're actually determining comes out. So the gain knob at the top is you're setting the level at the input of the channel. You're determining the level of what the rest of the signal chain is going to be from there. So what you might need up front of house might be really quiet for what's in the ears or what needs to go to like a record feed. So you might need to gain up more for what the guys in the ears need. And then you can control that level in the house with your fader.
Right. So we talked about how an analog wave is produced from a voice or from any instrument and comes into your microphone. It's most often at a very low signal. Okay, so we need to boost that signal to where it's usable to be reproduced in the system. And so, in every XLR jack in the rack is a tiny device called a preamp that's actually boosting the electronic signal. That's what gain is. It's gaining up the electronic signal to where it's at a usable level for us to process and reproduce through the speaker system. Okay, and so
if you were to plug one of these microphones straight into the amplifier for the system, you're not going to hear what somebody's saying, or if you are, it's going to be very, very quiet.
Yeah. So let's talk about this meter that we see here and the options. First thing we want to do is make sure we're using the right type of meter. So we're going to go to our master screen, and in the options tab, select the meter section, and we want to make sure we're on the Nordic setting there. What that does is that provides this meter that has a zero marker for us up near the top there. Okay, that's an easy reference point for us all to match to. I don't have to tell you -18 or -10 or when the yellow turns to blue or any of that kind of stuff. Zero is your mark. Okay, so you see it there up there near the top it's +12, +6, and then T0. That 0 is our mark, what we're shooting for. Okay, so we are trying to get every source gained up to where it's hitting that 0 mark. Okay, so that no matter how hard drummer A hits the snare drum versus how hard drummer B hits it, when we gain it to 0, everything else in the chain afterwards is going to match because we got our gain right. It's the first step in the process. It's the most important step in the entire chain. Okay, so when we're doing sound checks, we have to get our gain set properly, and we cannot adjust it later on throughout the day unless there's a dire emergency or a big problem, because it will change everyone's ear. It changes everything else in the rest of the chain, including everyone's ears, which is really detrimental to our band's confidence and comfort in hearing what they need to hear. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have the gain. We have a couple different views there. So through these scroll buttons up and down right here, we went to the full screen meter, down to this view which has some more options. Talk us through what's in there in that top box.
So this top box, you have an indicator for your phantom power right next to the snake name, your input. That's another thing. You're going to see what's routed. Oh, yeah. So you're going to have your channel number. You're going to have the input number on the rack, the stage rack. You're going to have an indicator for phantom power,
which all condenser microphones require.
Correct.
We talked about that.
The phase, you're going to have an indicator for that.
Polarity, technically.
Polarity.
Not phase. Remember that we talked about the polarity of 180 degrees for any microphone that's aimed up or opposite of the rest. We're going to flop that.
Then you're gonna have the gain knob, and then you're gonna have a trim knob, which is a digital gain. So once you get like a vocal level set on the gain side, you can adjust like the main, because since you're splitting that channel to monitors and front of house, you can adjust the trim level to bring it up or down based on what you need at front of house, and then you're not affecting the in-ears at that point because it's a separate channel, input channel, but you have, the gain is gonna control both channels, the analog gain, and then the digital trim is going to be controlling just the input channel that you're on.
Great. So one thing we didn't actually, we kind of glazed right over is back over here in this audio I/O is this is where we're able to name all these sockets. So rather than this just showing, it might say 1-1, 1-2, and then 2-1 through 2-8, and 3-1 through 3-8, as these are separate, these are individual cards. Here we're able to name it as Snake 1 all the way through Snake 48. You see here, through Snake 48. And then our second rack, rather than restarting it and having to like do math in our head, we're able to rename it as Snake 49 through 96. Okay? So we were able to preset label that right there. So we were able to label Snake number 1, and then we were able to go in and do the auto name for all of the sockets and the auto name those. So that means you have your upper rack and lower rack. You have 32 channels on your top D rack. Here's your D rack. You have 32 channels on top, and then your another rack on the bottom of another D rack. So we could call these 1 through 32, and these would be 33 through 64, which we would name right here. Just change that into being, press the button. We would just change that to be Snake 64. So this would be Snake 33, and we went to auto name all 32 sockets, and they all changed then. Okay, so that's how we can name those, and that makes easier communication between stage. Hey, where's that plug in? Snake 27, Snake 42, whatever. Hey, where did you plug your bass in? I'm not seeing it. It should be in 18. Can you make sure you're in 18, please? They can go over there and look on the rack and find 18. Okay, so you see that here on this window at the very top via the Snake 37. Shows where that's plugged in.
Yeah.
There.
Uh,
Keep going through gain. Yep, talk about the 20 dB pad.
So yeah, in here you've got the ability to do all of your input patching. So you can also do ripple channels here. So if you know, like, okay, I'm setting up a drum set, and I know I've got 9 channels of drums that's patching from Snake 37 or 1 through 9, you can ripple channel 9 inputs and repatch it real quick.
And it'll do all 9 of those in an order.
Correct.
Via that. You guys aren't having to change patches hardly ever. Our setups stay pretty consistent, so you guys aren't having to do that, but it's important to know that, important for you to know how to do that if you ever do need.
Yeah.
There's the actual where you actually can turn, apply or disable 48 volt via that button right there. And then negative 20 dB, what is that, Scott?
So you've got the head amps only go down to plus 10 dB on the Digico. By default, they only go down to plus 10 dB. Some things are going to come in hotter than that. Line level is what we call that generally. And most of the time, you're going to need to apply the pad or minus 20 dBs on your gain so that you can
reduce the incoming signal.
Yep. If something's coming in too hot but your gain's already all the way down, you need to enable the pad so that you can not be clipping your output, and then you can gain it back up to where you need it to be.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's pretty much all we need to talk through. You want to talk through some safes?
So down here, right underneath the input channel name, you've got all your recall safes or your channel safes. These are applicable if you're wanting to, if you're running your snapshots, which we haven't gone over yet,
Right.
but you're running different snapshots that are changing your vocal lead, if the guitar is a little bit, needs to be hotter on this song than the last song, but you change like the input gain, you don't want that being recalled in your next scenes or your next snapshots. So you're gonna go ahead and click on that, and it turns red. It turns the channel label red, indicating that something is saved on that channel and it's not gonna be recalled.
That means when you fire the next snapshot or whatever, it's not going to change that particular element of that channel. So you can apply this to all channels or all parameters of one channel or individual things you see there, like the EQ, the dynamics, the aux sends, whatever like that. Hopefully, in most cases, we're going to get all that stuff set up properly in our snapshots to begin with. But there are a couple channels where we still want the entire thing saved. So for example, Pastor Daniel or your campus pastor, we just go ahead and save that entire channel. Because we always want to control that manually. We don't want anything to be changed in that. And if we fix his EQ on one point, we don't want it to be disabled or recalled later differently, whatever. We want it to always be saved as whatever we last leave it as. So in that case, we could save his entire channel.
Correct.
And that would save all those parameters from being affected by different snapshots or whatever other settings. Okay,